let's face it, these days everyone throws around words like blockchain and crypto, but it feels like so many people don't actually get the fundamental ideas.
Yeah.
You know, like what really makes it all tick. So that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
We're taking a deep dive into Bitcoin.
Nice.
Back to the very beginning.
The OG.
Like, where did this whole thing even come from?
Exactly.
And to do that, we're going straight to the source.
Okay.
Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
A groundbreaking paper.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this isn't just some boring technical document.
Right.
It's like the foundation of a whole new way to think about money and value.
Exactly.
It's wild to think that just one paper could have such a huge impact.
It's pretty amazing.
So what was the problem
that
Nakamoto was even trying to solve?
Okay, well, think about traditional online payment systems. They all rely on trust in financial institutions. Right?
To be the middleman.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like they're the ones who are supposed to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that creates a whole bunch of vulnerabilities.
Oh, yeah.
Like fraud. The need for these institutions to step in and settle disputes. And a lot of times, like high barriers to even make small transactions.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I remember one time I tried to send a friend just like $1 online.
Right.
And the fees were almost as much as the payment.
It's ridiculous.
I know.
And that's exactly what Bitcoin is trying to change.
Okay.
Like, what if you could send money directly to anyone, anywhere, without needing a bank or any third party to be involved?
Yeah.
That's the core idea.
Yeah.
Behind Bitcoin.
So we can just cut out the middleman.
Cut him out.
Okay.
A system based on cryptographic proof.
Okay.
Instead of trust.
Cryptographic proof instead of trust. Okay, now you've got me really curious. Can you break that down? Sure. So the white paper describes electronic coins as chains of digital signatures.
Okay.
Essentially, it's a digital ledger where each transaction is linked to the one before it, creating this chain of ownership that anyone can check.
So anyone can verify?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, imagine passing a physical coin from person to person.
Yeah.
And each person adds their signature to prove that they held it.
Okay, like a chain of custody.
Exactly. It's
like,
kind of like that, but in the digital world.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So it's basically like a giant public record of every
single
Bitcoin transaction
ever made.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the blockchain.
That's the blockchain.
Right.
And that's what makes Bitcoin so revolutionary.
Okay, but that brings up another issue.
What's that?
The double spending problem.
Yeah.
How do you stop someone from just copying their Bitcoin and spending it over and over?
Right. Okay, so that's where the brilliance of Bitcoin's design really comes in.
Okay.
Because most systems would solve this with the central authority, like a bank, to verify every transaction.
Makes sense.
But Bitcoin does it without any central control. It's all about the network.
A network with no one in charge?
Exactly.
How does that even work?
Okay, so it all comes down to something called a timestamp server.
A timestamp server.
Basically, it's a public record of all transactions organized chronologically into blocks.
Okay.
And each block is cryptographically linked to the one before it.
So you can't mess with it.
Exactly. It's a tamper-proof history of transactions.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this blockchain thing takes shape.
It all comes together.
Yeah, but who's in charge of maintaining this timestamp server if there's no central authority?
That's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
The network itself maintains it.
The network itself?
Through a process called proof of work.
Proof of work.
Think of it like a massive computational puzzle that computers on the network called miners are constantly trying to solve.
Okay, I have to admit, I'm starting to feel a little lost in the technical weeds here.
Okay, let me try to simplify it.
Please.
So the first miner to solve the puzzle gets to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain.
Okay.
But here's the key. Solving this puzzle requires a ton of computing power.
So it'd be really hard.
Very difficult.
For someone to try and cheat.
Exactly. It makes it really costly to try and manipulate the blockchain.
So it's like a giant decentralized security system.
You got it.
Where the more people participate, the harder it is to cheat.
Exactly.
And that's proof of work.
And this proof of work isn't just some random task.
Oh.
It's the mechanism that secures the entire Bitcoin network.
Wow. Okay, but what's in it for these miners?
Right.
Why would they spend all this time and energy solving these puzzles? It can't just be for the love of puzzles, right?
Well, you know what they say. The best motivation is a little self-interest.
True.
So miners are incentivized through block rewards.
Block rewards.
So every time a miner adds a block to the blockchain, they're rewarded with newly created Bitcoin.
So the more they mine, the more Bitcoin they get.
Exactly.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's like a digital gold rush.
I like it. But wouldn't everyone just rush to be a miner then?
Right.
And wouldn't that mean that all the Bitcoin would get created super fast?
That's a great question. And that's where the concept of difficulty adjustment comes in.
Difficulty adjustment.
Yeah. So the Bitcoin protocol is designed to automatically adjust the difficulty of that proof of work puzzle.
Okay.
To make sure that new blocks are created at a steady rate.
So it keeps things balanced.
Exactly. It prevents that rapid inflation of Bitcoin.
That's a good thing. Okay, so we've talked about the miners.
Yeah.
But what about everyday users?
Right.
Like you and me.
Yeah.
How do we actually verify transactions without having to become miners ourselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Nakamoto totally anticipated that. He described a method in the white paper using something called a Merkle tree.
A Merkle tree.
Yeah, it's a data structure that lets you efficiently verify if a specific transaction is included in a block without having to download the entire blockchain.
Okay, I'm going to need a little help.
Yeah.
Visualizing this Merkle-free thing.
Okay, so imagine a tree where each leaf represents a transaction.
Yep.
And these transactions are grouped together in pairs, and their combined data creates a parent node.
Mm-hmm.
And this process repeats, forming layers, until you reach a single root node that represents the entire block.
So by following the branches, I can trace a transaction all the way back to the root.
Exactly.
Which is the whole block.
Yep.
Okay.
And the best part is, you only need to download a tiny bit of data to verify a specific transaction.
So this is way more efficient than downloading the whole blockchain.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like having a map that lets you find something without exploring the whole territory.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So we've talked about how transactions work, but what about privacy?
Right.
If all these transactions are public, doesn't that mean everyone can see what I'm buying and selling?
That's a common concern.
Yeah.
So while Bitcoin transactions are technically public, they're not directly linked to your real-world identity.
Okay.
Users are represented by public keys. They're long strings of characters that act like account numbers.
Like pseudonyms?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's like using a screen name online.
Right, so you can participate.
Yeah.
Without revealing your true identity.
Precisely.
But just like with online anonymity.
Right.
If you ever link your public key to your real identity, then your transaction history could become traceable.
Right. It's not foolproof anonymity,
okay,
but it offers more privacy than traditional financial systems.
Where everything's linked to your name and account details.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
And the white paper even suggests using a new key pair for each transaction to enhance privacy even further.
Oh, wow.
It really emphasizes user control over their information.
I like that. Okay, so we've covered the basics of how transactions work and how privacy is handled. But let's dive a little deeper into the technical stuff.
Okay.
Like you mentioned earlier. Things like difficulty adjustment. And even something called a binomial random walk.
Yes.
Can you shed some light on those?
Of course. So these technical details are really what make Bitcoin so robust and secure.
Okay.
So take the binomial random walk, for example. It's a way to visualize the competition between the honest chain maintained by the majority of miners following the rules and a potential attacker's chain that's trying to rewrite history.
So like a race.
Yeah.
Between good and evil.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
And the white paper uses this model to show how, as the honest chain grows, it becomes exponentially harder for an attacker to catch up, double spend a coin, or manipulate the blockchain.
So the longer the chain, the more secure the network. It's like a snowball effect.
I like that.
The longer it rolls, the bigger and more unstoppable it gets. So that's why it's good practice to wait for a few blocks to be added after your transaction to make sure it doesn't get reversed.
Exactly. It significantly reduces the risk.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
It seems like they really thought of everything to make this system as secure as possible.
They put a lot of thought into it.
And there must be limits, right? No system is perfect.
True.
So what are some of the vulnerabilities?
Okay, so Nakamoto was really upfront. about potential challenges.
Cool.
For example, he acknowledged that if someone controlled the majority of the network's computing power, they could manipulate the blockchain.
That makes sense.
This is known as a 51% attack.
51% attack.
But the paper also argues that as the network grows and becomes more decentralized, this kind of attack becomes much harder to pull off.
So it's all about maintaining that decentralization and preventing anyone from getting too much control.
Exactly. Power corrupts, right?
That's right.
And that's why decentralization is so central to Bitcoin's philosophy.
It's about spreading the power.
It's about distributing power and trust across the network.
Instead of relying on one single authority.
Exactly.
But even with a decentralized system, wouldn't it still be vulnerable to, like, hackers?
Sure, any system can be vulnerable to attacks.
Yeah.
But that's why the Bitcoin code is open source.
Open source.
So anyone can inspect it and look for vulnerabilities.
Okay.
This transparency creates a community of developers who are constantly working to improve the code and patch any weaknesses.
It's like an ongoing battle between the good guys and the bad guys.
In a way.
Trying to outsmart each other.
But it's this constant scrutiny that has made Bitcoin so robust over the years.
It's been around for a while.
Over a decade.
And it's still going strong.
And it's withstood countless attempts to break it.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's be real. Not everyone who uses Bitcoin is a tech expert who understands all this complicated stuff.
Right.
So what did Nakamoto envision for the average user?
That's a great question. And honestly, the white paper doesn't really answer that directly. It lays out the technical framework, but it doesn't really make predictions about adoption or the user experience.
Okay.
But there are hints that he understood the importance of accessibility and ease of use.
Like what?
For example, the paper emphasizes how simple it is to receive Bitcoin payments.
Okay.
It says that a user only needs to keep a copy of the blockchain headers, which at the time was only about 20 megabytes.
20 megabytes.
That's tiny compared to the full blockchain, which was already gigabytes in size.
Wow. So even back then, he was thinking about making it manageable.
Exactly.
For people who didn't have super powerful computers.
He wanted to make it practical.
That's cool.
And that focus on usability has been key to Bitcoin's success.
Yeah, because it is pretty easy to use.
Right.
Even though the technology behind it is complex.
It's pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing. It's incredible to think that all these ideas from a single white paper have sparked this whole technological revelation. It really is.
Yeah.
But it feels like this is just the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
So what are some of the key takeaways that you think listeners should walk away with today?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that Bitcoin isn't just about a new kind of money.
Okay.
It's about challenging the traditional systems that control our financial lives.
It's about putting the power back in the hands of the people.
Exactly. It's about decentralization.
Yeah.
Transparency.
Yeah.
And empowering individuals.
It's like giving people the tools to take control of their own financial destiny.
Exactly.
Love that.
And while Bitcoin itself might evolve or even be replaced by something else, the principles behind it, the power of cryptography, decentralized networks, transparency, user control, these ideas are here to stay.
They're going to shape the future of finance and technology.
For years to come.
It's exciting to think about.
It really is.
All the possibilities.
There's so many possibilities.
But before we get too carried away with the future, let's take a moment to appreciate Nakamoto's vision.
Absolutely.
And the impact it's had.
It's incredible in the world. It's a testament to human ingenuity.
Yeah.
And the potential for innovation.
From unexpected places.
Exactly.
Who knows? Maybe someone listening right now will be inspired to create the next Bitcoin.
Right.
The next world-changing technology.
That we can't even imagine yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is like a digital Gutenberg printing press.
Totally. Sparking a whole new era.
Uh-huh.
And it's not just about tech geeks anymore.
Right.
Bitcoin is going mainstream.
It is.
Companies.
Yeah.
Governments.
Yeah.
Even everyday people.
I know. It's pretty amazing.
Are starting to see its potential.
Yeah. And as more people use it, the network gets stronger.
Right.
It's like this self-reinforcing cycle.
It's like that snowball effect again.
Exactly.
But it hasn't been all smooth sailing.
True.
I mean, we've seen price volatility, regulatory uncertainty, even concerns about the environmental impact of mining.
Yeah. Those are all valid concerns. Bitcoin is still a young technology. Yeah. And there are definitely challenges. But I'm confident that the community and the strong foundation of its principles will lead to solutions.
That's what I'm counting on.
It's all about moving towards a more inclusive and decentralized future.
Okay, so looking ahead, where do you see Bitcoin and blockchain having the biggest impact?
Well, we're already seeing the rise of decentralized finance.
DeFi,
exactly. It's like recreating traditional financial services. But on the blockchain, like lending, borrowing, trading.
So it's cutting out the middleman again.
Exactly.
Giving people more control.
More control, more transparency, and lower costs.
And it's not just finance.
Right.
Blockchain is being used for.
Yeah.
Supply chains, voting, digital identity, even healthcare.
The possibilities are endless.
Like the early days of the internet.
I know, it's so exciting.
So much potential. But why should our listeners care?
Okay, good question. I want them to understand that Bitcoin isn't just about money. It's about a shift in power towards transparency and individual empowerment.
It's about taking control of your own destiny.
Exactly, whether you invest in Bitcoin or not. The ideas it represents are changing the world.
They're powerful ideas.
And they have the potential to reshape industries, transform economies, and empower individuals.
In ways we haven't even thought of yet.
Exactly.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into Bitcoin's genesis. We hope you found it insightful.
We did too.
And maybe even a little bit revolutionary. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, the future is decentralized.
I love it.